If you are new to this call, my name is Kelly Kolodney, and I've been channeling a really long time. And the way that I channel is I close my eyes and I ground down into Mother Earth and I rock back and forth, and my hands kind of move all over the place. And then Raphael comes in and says, hello, just like that. And you're all going to say, wherever you are in the world, hello, like that back. And Casey will also do that. That's how we connect with Raphael's energy. And then we're going to tap into what's going on right now on the planet, as there's a lot happening, right? And then we will bring in Quan Yin, who I've never actually channeled directly before. Energy is very gentle and soft, and we'll tune to that vibration of compassion, which we all could use today for sure. All right, so let's start. Let's just get going. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello,
Hello.
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 It is that we are delighted, as always, to be here with you and to absolutely love and adore who it is that you are. And we recognize right now that there is a lot of angst and fear bubbling to the surface, as there is a lot of things occurring and taking place on this planet, which we are wanting to take a moment to address. For it is that when we came to you many years ago, prior to that of the virus, in which presented itself across your globe, we told you there would be 3 waves of energy that would come in to support the awakening of humanity. And we did not say that in that process, those awakenings would always be easy or pain-free. And it is now that what is occurring is that what you are experiencing and what others are feeling around the globe, as there is a lot of tension, is the second wave of energy that is arising. And as these waves intensify, the energy around them intensifies, because the light quotation on the planet is also intensifying. And as more light is coming in, that in which is hiding within the shadow has nowhere to hide, meaning that it must come to the surface in order to be healed. It must come up for healing. And in that process, it requires that of those of you that you may label yourself as starseed or light workers or empaths or beings of light that are here around the globe at this time, to elevate your vibration and to utilize all the tools that have been shared and given to you over time, and to hold that energy at the highest frequency that you can, in order to maintain an equilibrium, so that the energy of this wave does not peak at a point that becomes deeply uncomfortable for even more of you. And so it is that we are asking you from the angelic realm to make sure that you spend time in your prayer and in your meditation and in your heart center and in stillness, to hold and maintain a vibration of love, compassion, and forgiveness. And that any place within you that the energy is surfacing, where the light is bombarding it within you, that you also bring attention to it in love, in compassion, and in forgiveness, something in which Kuan Yin is here today to work with you and to talk to you about. It is that there is the old energies of the ego, of the illusion of what was created in the thought forms of the mind that has perpetrated so much suffering across the globe needlessly, is always has been there, and it comes in waves and peaks and ebbs and flows, but is rearing its head right now and is in requirement of the stillness of your mind to seep that energy into the collective mind so the illusion of separation may begin to dismantle itself. It is that there will be a time on your earth in which there will be no borders, and without borders, there will be nothing to fight about. There will be no sense of ownership in the way in which for a very long time within your history has been established, even in tribal form, of as territory. This essence and aspect will be delineated as the final push of light reigns across the globe in a willingness to recognize that there is actually no such thing as an ownership of Earth, and that Earth is there for the taking and for the connection and for the giving and for the relationship of all beings in all forms that come forth in the process of dwelling here on this earth that you call your mother. And when one chooses to own and to hoard or to think that something is of their own in this particular right or way in which aggression occurs, it is that it brings light to the dismantling of the egotic mind that is so caught in the illusion of defending itself to think that it is right or it is wrong. And it is the vibration of the need to be right, to the point in which one would inflict such a sorrow and pain upon another in order to gain a sense of greater self. Based in ego is something in which it lives and dwells within the collective human consciousness of every human on the planet. And it lives and dwells within all of you, some to a much smaller degree and others to a degree that it is so hardened and steadfast, like concrete within the mind, that the mind is so caught in the process of the thought of which it thinks to be true in the ego mind that it has created an illusion of the basis of what is real. And so the crumbling of many things will continue to occur, whether that be of governments or institutions or financial systems or agricultural systems or educational systems. Anything that is based in greed, anything that is based in hierarchy, anything that is based in the ego mind and the illusion of the thought of the need to be right and the corruption of holding power across and around and above another, not connected to the intuitive sense of the divine feminine that is rising quickly across the globe, will not be able to sustain the bombardment of the light, because the bombardment, just like bombs themselves, are raining of light across your globe that are breaking apart and crushing that has been built in falsehood of the ego mind of territory, form, and a sense of hierarchy. Now, this is very deeply important, not to move into the energy and the vibration of blame, or to think that the place in which these things and atrocities are occurring are that because that particular region or area is unique into itself, into carrying, they're holding this vibration, for that is not true. For it is simply like a pimple that has come to the surface in which one might be focusing on, but the systemic toxicity lives and dwells within the body of the full human form as it does within that of all nations across the globe. For one is not relieved of these actions, nor is separate from it, for it is all interconnected. You are currently on a very interesting propelled energy that is accelerated, for it is a time not only here on Earth, but astrologically within the star systems and planets around the galactic energy of all that is deeper, what might be labeled as destabilization, unstabilizing energy. And that energy is moving rapidly, and it is moving quickly toward a much greater sense of stability that will be the outcome of this as you move past these difficult times. This is not something that in the blink of an eye will shift, for there are weeks and months ahead of turmoil and angst to be held. And it is important for all of you to hold the vibration of love within your heart and compassion, as Quan Yin shall bring this forward to support all of you in doing so. It is that when this time passes, there will be a time where peace will reign for a bit as new energies are implemented and seeded across the globe, and then another wave of bombardment of a new or third wave. And we are not clear on that timeline yet, for it has not fully come into fruition or unfolded, will raise its head as well for the final culmination of the awakening process as you move into the years moving forward. It is important not to get caught in the timeline or the wondering as to when it will occur or when it will end or what will happen, but to be deeply present where it is that you are. For it is in the mind wondering and its great curiosity, tapping into the future of what will be, is simply part of the ego mind that needs to know, or needs to be right, or needs to understand, that is disconnected from the aspect of who it is and where it is that you are needing to be within yourself in order for this to move forward in the most peaceful way possible with the greatest outcome for the collective. And so know that you are not left alone, and that we are here as legions of light, and that we are with you. But we cannot, and we must stress this enough as we have many times before, interfere in your process as a human race due to your free will unless we are invited. And so the declaration of particular ways of speaking and ways of asking and commanding of us to come in with our presence of light to assist you in the deepest connection to the highest aspects of self and to that of those who perhaps currently are the leaders around the world, brings about an ability for us to intervene on your behalf in the greatest way possible to bring about the least amount of harm as possible. It is that there are many right now who are feeling great sorrow and pain, but in that, what it brings is a spotlight to that pain that is across the globe infinitely all the time. And yet one in the busy day of their life perhaps is easy to forget of the pain and the suffering of others, of a child that is hungry or someone in deep sorrow or upset, because they are distracted from the ego mind of the illusion of their reality. And yet when it is placed directly in front of you repetitively, for the vibration that is permeating and moving out into the energetic field of the earth, is one that can be not denied. For you may feel this energy come in as an upset or an anxiety. Tears may roll down your face, or you may go about your day in the forgetting of what is happening, and yet vibrationally you will tune to it as you place your hand upon the earth. For there is no escaping the energy that is occurring right now, and that what is just being lifted by it, and nor should it be, for it needs to be seen and looked at and brought into awareness so that compassion can reign toward and around and through it. And so we're going to connect today with the great Kuan Yin, for she has a story to tell you, my dear ones. For it is that she lived in a time herself as she was in human form on earth, walking across this globe. And although today day you might think that there are atrocities happening beyond measure, know and remember that the history of humankind, that this has occurred for a millennium. And as you attune to the vibration of her energy, she shall say to you, that she was a dear vibration of high light and love, but she was born as she hovered across the globe to decide where would be best for her to come into the greatest place of compassion. For you see, when her calling was brought to her, the energy that brought her to be born, just as it is to you, it is like a spark or a breath that comes at a moment's notice when the soul comes to fruition in creation. And in that moment, there is a choice point as a word or an energy or vibration in which you choose to embody and to reign across the globe and to move through lifetime and lifetime after lifetime until you master whatever vibration that may be. And as the calling of her soul came forward and the breath was born, she hovered across the globe looking for where it was that she could embody the energy of compassion itself. And as she hovered and looked around, she saw a family in a village in Asia. And as she attuned to their energy, she thought, this is a place in which I can descend down into density and into form and into that village in order to embody the most compassion as possible. And yet she came with a great spark within her eyes and a light within her heart as she dropped down into the womb of her mother. And as she was given birth, she realized she was born into a family where there was a caste system of hierarchy and a sense of ownership, especially of that of the feminine child, and the worthiness of who she was to bring forth food to her family depended upon who she was married to. And as she was there, she tried often to escape into the forest and the jungle and the places of nature near the water to put her foot near the edge. In order to attune to the vibration of which somewhere when she masked and took away the amnesia, the forgetting of the soul of who she was, remembered the spark of light. And as that happened, she knew whenever she returned home to her place, to her village, to her family, that there would be great beatings awaiting her and her desperate seek and looking to be somewhere other than where it was that she was. And one day there was a great war that came, and those came to her village, and they burned her home, and they raped her body, and they pillaged her loved ones, and they killed her family. And she was left there laying in a puddle of her own blood in the great sorrow of this trauma that was within every cell of her body, within her being. And in that, she heard a call, and the call came from a great spirit in the great beyond, the source that gave birth to who she was. And her amnesia lifted enough to be able to hear the call, enough to stand up from that pain and the wounds on her body that not only came from the rape that occurred to her and the sorrow that happened and the killing and the trauma of her family, but the infliction of physical wounds on her body. But yet she found a way to rise to her feet and walk along the road till she found herself deep inside nature and in the jungle, where she lived and dwelled for a period of time away from humans and their atrocities. And as she was there for many years, passing self and moving into that of more the creature of the animal, moving back and away from any of the human delights of knowing the humanness of her form, a being of light came to her. And this light came in the form of a man. And he came and he stood far away from where she was. And he opened a space within his heart. And in that space within his heart was so much love that it was just permeating wherever he walked, and whatever he touched would turn to light and to crystalline. And he stood far away from her, knowing as he would approach her, she would be afraid and shrug and pull away from the sorrow and the memory of the trauma of that of others who had hurt her. So he just stood near her, but not too close, near a beautiful waterfall of healing light. And he just remained there, and the remaining of there and the willingness to just radiate that love. She just looked up at him and wondered what he wanted. And yet she knew within her being that he would not hurt her and that no harm would come to her. And it took a very, very long time in linear time for her to just be in his presence and to allow. And the more that he radiated love to her over and over and over and over again, the more her trauma began to surface. And it came out, and she was angry, and she threw stones at him and sticks, and she spit on him. And she was filled with rage, and she would move up and down and come over and hit him over the head. And he just stood there radiating love from his heart, knowing that this anger, this frustration, this sorrow and pain came from the trauma of her past. And yet he did not allow it to hurt him or to bother him, for he did not even flinch with the love that he held and carried in his heart for her. And after more and more time passed, and he began to continue to be just still in the presence of what and who he is, that he was, with the compassion in his heart, the vessel of her rage and her sorrow and her pain began to come out and out and out, until finally it was emptied within her, as if a vase had been turned over and every last drop of that pain had been washed away. And then she began to have an open vessel, a spaciousness, where she just began to sit. And in that spaciousness and the emptiness of her rage, he noticed perhaps there was a space now for him to come closer. And as he did, she did not shy away, but stood there and looked at him straight in his eyes. And as she did that, they began to touch hands. And in the touching of the hand, the electricity of the love that moved through his being, that came from the source of all that is, permeated everything within her. And she began to rise and lift, and light began to move through her as her heart began to reawaken, and the amnesia of the forgetting of who she was began to be washed away. And they sat together in the jungle and in the forest with the animals and the water and the crystals, and they just were for a long period of time, as she continued to receive compassion, and the hatred she had for herself and the criticism and the self-judgment was just washed away, as she began to have reverence for her own body and love for her spirit and her soul, as she began to hold herself and bathe herself in the light. And it is that this compassion that he was willing to hold for her is compassion that is being seen right now all around the world. For you focus on that of the beating or the gun shells or the sorrow or the pain of war, but yet there are the ones who are cooking the hot meals. There are the ones standing out in the cold, bringing warm blankets and hats and food. There are the ones standing at the station with the sign, I can take 2 or 3 or 4. They are coming from all over, from countries without borders across the globe, to help, to love, to care for, to send resources, to be present. And so with this sorrow and this pain is also the cracking in humanity and the opening of the heart, and compassion is coming forward. And as you hold this compassion in your heart long enough for even the ones that seem so traumatized, so hurt, those who are in the act of aggression of war, you see, they too were little babies. Look at them and find compassion in your heart, for they too were the one that was traumatized in some way, or hurt, or belittled, or abandoned, or seen in a way in which was not human. And so they have dehumanized others in order to expand the illusion of the mind of the ego, in order to justify the pain and the suffering on others. And yet when you can find compassion in your heart for them and hold it even in their aggression of their tantrum that they may have at you or toward you or another, as Kuan Yin herself did to the light that came to save her, then the healing may begin. And so Kuan Yin says that her story is a teaching and it is a lesson, you see, to remember to have compassion. And that when that in which you have compassion toward comes toward you in an aggressive way in which they spit and push against you, know that it comes from the trauma on the cellular level and the pain that lives and dwells within their being. And that as you continue to steadfast hold that heart of light in and around and with and who you are, that a healing takes place. And it is that healing that is needed now on your earth. You see, many of you may have heard of the possibility of the destruction of your planet, as there are those who have their hand or their finger on a trigger of great destruction. But we want to assure you here and now that we will not allow that to occur. From the beings of the great light across the great central sun into the galactic federation of the light of all that is, the planet Earth is of too great and precious to allow it to be destroyed. So know that that is not on the table, but the pain and the sorrow is still there. And it is the compassion in your heart that will allow it to begin to cease. And so we call upon all of you today to bring compassion as Kuan Yin comes to you and comes forward now, to look and to stand in the shoes of another, to stand in the shoes perhaps of an enemy. Perhaps the enemy is yourself, in which you carry shame or guilt or an unwillingness to love yourself. Stand in your own shoes, go through your own life, your own process, and your own pain that has brought you to where you are. Or perhaps it is that you have a child, or perhaps it is that you have a friend or a sibling, or perhaps it is an institution or a leader which you have great disdain for, or pain with, or conflict with, or saddening in your heart, or an inability to connect or to communicate, in which you have turned away. If you feel capable, if you feel that there is enough love within you, if you feel you're able, and if not, we do not require it of you, but if you have been blessed enough to be aware, to be here in the listening of this, perhaps you can find forgiveness in your heart for them. Perhaps you can take time in this now moment to stand in their shoes. And so we ask you to do that. Attune in this vibration of this now moment to another within your own experience, whoever it may be, a family member, a friend, a person, a leader, a place, or an institution in which you are holding aggression, anger, resentment, or an inability to forgive, or simply perhaps deeply agitated with. And in that, we want you to drop now as you close your eyes, allowing your eyes to become heavier and heavier and heavier. And in the closing of your eyes, begin to attune to the vibration of that comes to mind. And as they begin to come to mind, we ask you to go to where they are, to feel their energy and their vibration as you begin to scan their being. And you might notice there's a hardening somewhere. The hardening might be in the heart, or it might be in the head. They may be stubborn, or they may be difficult. They may be self-absorbed, or filled with their ego, or self-righteous. They may be a narcissist. Attuned to their energy and vibration, they may just be out of touch, or over in touch, or oversensitive or defensive. Attuned to them and attune to their energy and vibration. As you do so, I want you to drop down now. And as you drop down into their field and attune to their energy, look down and see what you're wearing. It is their shoes. What do their shoes look like? They may be very different from yours. So they may be a man's shoes, or woman's shoes, or child's shoes, or leader's shoes, or the shoes of something that is corporate, a way of energy of being. Attuned to their energy and to their vibration. And as you step into their shoes, step into where they have walked, what their journey has been like from the moment of their first breath, what perhaps they have gone through or endured that you may not know or are aware or have forgotten that has hardened them to where they are. And in that hardening, we ask you now, as Kuan Yin comes with her vessel of love, as she pours golden light down upon your head, to open your heart wide and to feel compassion now for them. Open your heart and radiate compassion to them, just like the man radiated and held compassion for Kuan Yin in her woundedness, in her anger, in her rage, and in her pain. And as you hold that now, remember that you are walking in their shoes. And so we want to take this further now beyond that of a person you care for, as we're going to move even beyond that. And I want you to think of another that is even bigger than an individual. For if you are Republican, I want you to think of the Democrats and love them and open compassion and walk in their shoes. And if you are a Democrat, I want you to open your heart and walk in compassion of those of a Republican and walk in their shoes. If you are one that is upset about the mandates and is an anti-vaxxer, I want you to love those who thought it was the right thing to do to vaccinate another. And if you are one that felt the opposite, I want you to do that. I want you to love those who thought it was best not to do that. All of this division, all of this separation, open your heart to compassion, Kuan Yin says. Walk in the shoes of another. Walk in their shoes. For there is inherently nothing evil across your globe. There is just deeper states of forgetting and amnesia. And in the amnesia, you see, my dear ones, the mind becomes so active and the ego so large that it acts in its self-interest to create a deeper sense of separation in order to hold on to what it knows to be familiar, in order to maintain a sense of safety. And so it actually comes from a deep sense of pain and trauma and insecurity. And when you can see that beneath behind the scenes, as you keep taking off the layers, is the wounds of humanity that are begging for your compassion, then you as a human race shall heal. You see, you all talk a good talk about revealing the truth, looking behind the scenes, that you are being manipulated. But then once you reach that, release that and go behind that. What's behind there? Keep going further, delving deeper. What is really at the core is wounded humanity that has been inflicted with pain, in the idea of the mind, of the thought, of the illusion of separation that has created this sense of suffering in an unwillingness to surrender to what is, with the need for it to be other than it is, in the idea that you are in control. And when you surrender to the higher part of self, that is the divine, that gave the spark, that allowed the breath to occur and your heart to beat and the earth to be present, when you surrender to that, peace will reign across your globe. And so Kuan Yin says now that she asks that you take the compassion that you gave to those who perhaps, as the Christ energy of Jesus would say, to love your enemy, to yourself. And she places a mirror in front of you. And as she places that mirror in front of you, she asks you to look at yourself. And in the reflection, do you love yourself? Or are you critical of yourself? Do you judge yourself, or do you see the beauty that dwells and lives and is within? And with that, she says to you that she comes to you now with her vessel of golden light, as she places it and pours it at the top of your head, raining across your body. And with that, she asks you physically right now to take your hands and to hold yourself. And as you hold yourself, she asks you to rub yourself and to be gentle with yourself, to have compassion for yourself. You don't have to figure this all out. You don't have to figure it out. You don't actually have to figure anything out. You can let go. Love yourself. Be gentle. Release. Let go. Love yourself. And she asks you today that the greatest thing that you can do for your earth, for your globe, for fellow humanity, and for peace to reign across the space in which you know to be your home, is to hold compassion for yourself, to be gentle with yourself, to be forgiving of yourself, to bring healing to yourself, to be gentle with those around you, to love them, to have compassion for them, to hold them in the highest esteem, to see their divinity and their spark behind the heavy armor of their pain, even deep within the dwelling of the one that seems to be the most hardened of all. And when you can find that little tiny spark, even in the greatest and most horrific of beings, tap it, expand it, send compassion to it. It might take some time for it to come around. It might spit at you and it might hit you over the head and stomp around and have a tantrum and do awful things. But eventually, if you hold steady and fast and hold the compassion and the vibration of love, it will settle and it will relax and it will open its eyes and it will surrender and it will let go, as will you. And so with that, many blessings and good day.
That was beautiful, Mama.
Oh, great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. I love you. Hold the compassion and the light. I Am Creation begins on Friday. If you haven't registered, we're here. It's my birthday on Tuesday. I'm going to be 55. And so my gift to anyone who still hasn't registered is $111 off. I love you, and let's keep holding the light, okay? Anything else, Casey?
Yeah, I just want to say, just in case people weren't able to hear you, your mic went down. What she said is that it's her birthday on March 8th, and there's going to be a discount for the I Am Creation course, which is phenomenal. I just did the I Am Creation retreat, and it went so well, and we learned so much. And immediately as people started leaving, we started getting text messages that things were working almost instantaneously once they left the retreat. And so this I Am Creation course is going to be a deep dive into how and why manifestation works. Like my mother said, merging with your I Am presence and really, faith stacking, because a lot of us know how to manifest, but there's a part of us that doesn't quite believe it fully on a conscious and unconscious level. We believe it consciously. So we are creating congruence, we're creating clarity, and we are creating a deep sense of faith. And what you can believe, you can experience. And as we believe our I am presence has integrated into our body, we can experience the infinite potentials of life. So if that's something that you're called to do, we look forward to having you. We start March 11th. And so we'll have a live on March 8th. And, you know, you'll probably be able to get the discount then. So sign up, and we can't wait to see you there.
Thanks, sweetheart. All right, guys, I love you. Hold the compassion. Try to turn off the news. Send money to help the people around the globe, okay? I love you. Mwah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
Thank
We're
you,
thanking.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm very
Thank you.
confused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. We love you. A blessing. Thank you,
Thank you,
Kelly.
Love you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Kelly.
Kelly.
Thanks, everybody. Love, love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.